Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Bushes on the Trail. This time we are leaving the Len Foote hike in and heading down the AT approach trail back to Amicalola Falls. So you'll get to see a good portion of the actual trail that many thru hikers begin their big journey from Springer Mountain, Georgia, all the way to Mount Katahdin in Maine. So this is the approach trail just to start the AT, so stick around. One last walkthrough of our bunkhouse room. It was lavish, it was spacious, and okay, who am I kidding? You saw it. It was like a walk-in closet, but it had plenty of space for our needs. Now Christy and I take one last picture of the Len Foote hike in, and we are heading out on the trail again. This time we are taking the approach trail to the AT, heading south and going back down to Amicalola Falls. We will continue along this narrowing path for about a mile up to the AT approach trail. As you can see, it drops off a little sharply to the right. If you roll down the hill, it might hurt a little bit, but the views throughout the forest as it opened up from time to time were pretty neat to see. The green canopy of the forest becomes more vibrant as we get closer to the summit of Frost Mountain, and that's the point where this trail that goes to the Len Foote hike in and the AT approach trail actually meet. And once we get to that point, we can either turn right to go to Springer Mountain or left to go home. Unfortunately, we had to turn left to go home. What you're looking at now is the AT approach trail that goes from Amicalola Falls all the way up to the summit of Springer Mountain. It's about 8.5 miles. It takes several hours to go up, and there's a huge elevation change up and down and over mountains. As you can see, there are a lot of roots in the actual pathway. There are several rocks. It can get very steep at times. And imagine, a lot of thru hikers start their thru hike from the falls, go up all of those stairs by the falls with a full pack on, and then hike the 8 miles up to Springer Mountain. They go through areas that are narrow and steep like this, and sometimes they're doing this in February and March when there's snow on the ground. Could you imagine doing this and dodging all these roots with 2 or 3 inches of snow on the ground? What you're now about to behold is a genius in cinematography. It is a creation of my... Okay, never mind. I accidentally hit the slow motion button instead of the video button on my phone as we were hiking, so that's why this is moving a lot slower. You can see the bugs slowly flying into the view of the camera lens, but it does give you a pretty decent idea of what the forest looks like on top of one of these mountains along the AT approach trail. Okay, now we're back to normal speed and we are dodging a few rocks. The trail is sort of level at this point, and whenever it starts to level off, sometimes you'll see these campsites like sitting here off in the background throughout the AT approach trail. You may be thinking, well, I thought this was supposed to be a rugged and rough and steep and strenuous hike, but to tell you the truth, the videos don't do it justice. This is actually a steeper portion of the hike. It's not the steepest, it's not the roughest, but it's one of the steeper ones where I could actually hold the camera. When it gets really bad, I don't hold the camera out because, I might fall, you might drop some equipment, and really you'd have to be a freaking idiot to try to hold your camera and go down steep rocks and think that you're going to get by without falling or dropping some equipment. I mean, only an idiot would do something like that. And, well, never mind. Okay, a little full disclosure on the last little slip of the equipment. I actually started to slide down the rocks a little bit as I was coming down. I turned the camera off at that point and then went on to kick the trekking pole a little further down the hill. I had to catch it off on the side of the trail before it rolled down a little farther. So yeah, you got to be careful whenever you're filming going down these steep and rocky portions of the trail. Now you may be wondering, I swear I think I saw sand on these trails before. And yes, if you've been watching the videos, some of the trail portions do look like they're sandy because they do have sand mixed into the clay and silt. The maintainers of the trail use the sand to help with drainage because clay and silt on its own does not provide enough drainage, and if you just threw sand down, the sand particles are so large that they would be unstable and they wouldn't bind together. So they mix the soil and the sand together to provide better drainage and better footing along the trail. Up ahead on the left is a pile of rocks, and this is actually a Sasquatch burial mound, and people say he isn't real. Interesting. Okay, just in case you think I'm lying about the Sasquatch grave, there was an actual plaque around the Sasquatch grave that said, "Here lies Daryl, love Flo." Okay, no, I'm just kidding. And no, I'm not being paid by any sort of insurance group that might have that in a commercial. However, if they would like to pay me, I would mention them on this, and they can contact me at bushesonthetrail@gmail.com. I can be bought. Okay, now as we approach the bottom of the mountain, Christy's probably gone, enough with the stupid jokes already, and the kids are probably cringing because I left it in. But anyway, here are some portions of the forest that sort of widen out as we get towards the bottom of the mountain. And just to let you know, if you ever take this trail and go down, make sure you have trekking poles because it is rough on the knees. There's a lot of controlled descents, and your knees will feel it. I had the ibuprofen lunch once we got down to the bottom of the trail. As you can see, some of the rocks, you're stepping up and down over these. And if you're taking it on the way up, be ready for your lungs to want to explode because it can be quite daunting in certain portions of this trail, especially with a 30 or 40 pound pack on your back. And here we are, we're starting to get a little closer to our final destination, which will be the parking lot at the top of Amicalola Falls. And here we are back at the main sign that tells how strenuous the hike is ahead of you if you're heading up to the Len Foote Hike-In or Springer Mountain. But we are about 1.5 miles away from the visitor center at this point, about 0.5 mile away from the car, and it is getting extremely hot in August in Georgia. Now we are at that bittersweet moment where we can see civilization off in the distance, the parking lot off to our right, and that's where our car is. So for hikers, this is where your journey ends. You feel accomplished, but now you know you have to get off the trail and return to quote unquote the real world. And here we are now back at the top of Amicalola Falls, and who do we run into? A couple of our friends from the AT and the Len Foote Hike-In. The trail names are Wrench and Swamp Lizard.
Hey guys, you want to do this again? Hey, you want to go down? Oh no.
We just did that. Thank you very much.
Did you go down?
Down past the boardwalk and then went down to the next level. He says, I think it is another level.
The entire 3-day trip to Amicalola Falls, the Len Foote Hike-In, the summit of Springer Mountain, and getting to hike the Appalachian Trail was unbelievable. And Christy and I hiked to a majestic waterfall. We saw beautiful sunrises every morning, interesting structures like this one. We walked through a serene forest with challenging terrain, and we put almost another 30 miles of hiking under our belts. And this was just the tip of the iceberg for this trip. We met some wonderful people and had the opportunity to walk on the southern terminus of one of the most famous trails in the world. This is the second rustic style lodge that Christy and I have had the pleasure to hike to and spend the night. The first one was Mount LeConte in the Smokies, and this one was obviously the Len Foote Hike-In in Georgia. They're both very similar, but different. The LeConte Lodge is a more primitive lodging experience with no electricity or running water at all. And at over 6,700 feet in elevation, it is a tougher hike, but the payoff and views are spectacular. The Len Foote Hike-In is half of the elevation, but the amenities of a hot shower and electricity may be more suited for those who are starting to learn to rough it and not quite ready for such a primitive existence. Plus, the hike along the approach trail to Springer Mountain and trekking the AT can still provide a stern challenge for the most serious hiker. This is one place Christy and I plan to return to one day, possibly before we begin a multi-day section hike of the Appalachian Trail. Hey guys, thanks for watching, and please give us a thumbs up. Helps people find us on YouTube. Also, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our next adventure, and it's going to be epic. Christy and I are back on the AT, and we are heading up to McAfee Knob in Virginia. It's about a 4 to 5 mile hike up to the most photographed area on the Appalachian Trail. A lot of visitors. It is really cool. You'll see us hanging off the cliff about 3,100 feet in the air, walking along the edges of McAfee Knob, and actually get to see a longer portion of the AT. So we hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching.